Okay, what is a verbatim and how is it helpful as a leadership development tool? A verbatim is simply a form of an essay that you write that revisits a leadership encounter you had in the past to help you grow more aware of what's going under the surface in you and how what goes on under the surface can infect and get in the way of your health and the health of your team and healthy leadership. A verbatim is a tool designed to help you break recurring patterns. It's also designed to help you challenge some assumptions you might have about life. And ideally, if a verbatim is done right, it helps you break free of some of the ways that you end up being plagued and your world gotten shrunk. It actually moves you into a broader world, a more gracious world, where you can be less reactive and more free, and that you can also be a more non-anxious presence for people around you. That's a strong claim. When I was a hospital chaplain, one of the requirements that we had was to do a verbatim, and I think we did one every week. I think, in fact, sometimes we would do more than one verbatim a week. The thing I love about a verbatim is you present them to a group, and whether you're the presenter or whether you're the person in the group, you always learn something. You learn something about the person, you learn something about yourself. You might imagine if you're presenting a previous leadership encounter to a group, that's a pretty vulnerable experience. And so that's part of what makes a verbatim difficult. I don't know many people that enjoy presenting a verbatim in the moment, but I'll tell you this, over the dozens of verbatims I've presented, I don't think there's a single tool where I have learned more about myself and my assumptions and the way I show up, or that has helped me break free more from my tendencies. So verbatims are powerful. Okay, how do you go about choosing an encounter to type up for a verbatim? The best verbatim encounters are in the recent past. They shouldn't be years ago because those are hard to remember in detail, but probably something in the last several weeks or maybe even in the last few months. And as you're thinking through a leadership encounter, try to think to yourself, was there a situation where I didn't know what to do? Was there a situation where I went in anxious or maybe I came out anxious? Was there an encounter where things went left field and I wasn't expecting it? And finally, was there an encounter that just simply didn't go the way I wish it would, and maybe I have some regret over how I showed up? You're not looking for an encounter that has all of those. Any individual one of those is verbatim gold. It's a great material for your verbatim. What you do once you've figured out your encounter is you sit down quietly for 15 or 20 minutes and you just begin to recall the encounter. The reason it's called a verbatim is you're actually planning to type up word for word what you said, what the other person said, beat by beat, the entire conversation as best as you can remember it. Now, obviously, the longer an encounter, the less likely you're going to remember everything. But the beauty of a verbatim is it's not really designed to be objective. You're not a journalist. It is a subjective tool. You are only giving your point of view. So you're not necessarily trying to recall objectively what everyone said. Just capture as best as you can what you said, what the other person said, if there's a group, what everybody said. If you forget parts, you just note that. You say, I don't remember what happened here, or they said something like this. But you type the verbatim up in an essay. I happen to have a verbatim here. I'm going to show you some of the aspects of it. But before we get to the logistics of how to make a verbatim, the real magic of a verbatim is to help you grow more aware of what's going on under the surface in you and how it infects you and the people you're leading. And by becoming aware of that, it gives you more power the next time you're in a leadership encounter to show up differently, to preempt that anxious response. A verbatim is never about a mulligan. It's never about how you should have done it. And so because you present it in a group, a verbatim should always have a presenter and it should also have a facilitator, and they should not be the same people. Somebody should present, they're on kind of the hot seat, and then someone else should facilitate, and their job is to protect the presenter from themselves and the rest of the group going into fix-it mode, and here's how you should have done it mode, or here's how I would have done it. Verbatims have no interest in a mulligan. The only interest of a verbatim is to help you notice what's going on under the surface. And so here's a sample verbatim. You can go on my website and actually download a sample. And it starts with simply some context, just some observation. You just give us a couple of paragraphs of background that was leading into the situation. And then, as best as you can think of, you give a couple of paragraphs of what you were thinking and feeling going into the situation. Where the verbatim really is gold is this table here. And I'm going to turn to page 2 because more of the table is on page 2. Where here you put the person, so you can see I've already started the dialogue on page 1. So we're up to P2, and P is just person, and then M2. This is just simply a way to designate different people. P is one person, M is one person, 2 is the second thing they said, 3 is the third thing they said, and so on. So he said, she said, he said, she said. Verbatim is word for word as best you remember what was said. This column here, this right-hand column, this is the gold. It is what you were thinking and feeling at the time. As best as you can recall, what were you thinking and feeling at the time? And then the third page is just some reflection. As you do it now, what are you thinking and feeling now? Verbatims were born in a faith context. I myself am a person of faith. And so the last reflection is, where did you see God at work, or did you even notice that God was at work? Because one of the things I teach is oftentimes anxiety takes up the same space where God resides. So it's very difficult to be present to your anxiety and to God at the same time. That's a verbatim. Anyone in your group can present one, and you can go to my website for more resources on a verbatim. In my book, I write a whole chapter on them, and I also have some downloadable resources in video form and PDF on how to help you make a verbatim and how to help you facilitate a verbatim.